I'm going to ring the bell again and invite us to stand with the breath, remembering to breathe in and out, deep and slow, and stand and then turn, and we'll begin the walking meditation. We'll just move our bodies a little bit around for the next 10 minutes. Come back, sit down, sit for a little while. Bells will be sounded, and then we'll open the circle for sharing. Practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limit. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the path. We do not cling in any way to the virtue and goodness we have generated. In order that all beings may benefit from it, we dedicate it in the realm of totality. This virtue and all virtue gathered in the three times, we dedicate, as all Buddhas do, to supreme, non-residing awakening. May we attain a state of union in this life. I am going to share Cynthia West's poem for this week before we open it up for dialogue. It's called Shaken by Change. We're not that different from migrating hummingbirds racing forward, driven by a wordless longing to reach a destination we can't conceive. Shaken by change, doing our best in the virus time. We're wounded veterans returning to our homes from wars fought for no meaning. Most of our clothing has fallen away, leaving naked pain that every wind probes. With new masks protecting us from each other, we mourn the ones we used to wear to let people know how much we wanted to be loved. The bones of our faces are starting to show now that the armor is stripped away. The maps to certainty we were taught would never fail have been blown to shreds by high winds. We hasten on, unaware. We're little cars running on invisible tracks with no idea we might someday understand that we will arrive exactly where we are meant to, despite never having heard of it. And so, here we are. That was somewhat of a painful experience for me to negotiate all the technology, and I missed a lot of what he said in the course of that. So I didn't quite expect for it to be as it was. But in any case, I'm wondering, what your experience was, what you got out of it, what you're sitting with now. Can either raise your hand at the bottom of the participants panel or just unmute yourself. It's great to be with you. Thank you for being here. All right. Maggie and Eva, would you like to speak?
There's a lot going through my head during this discussion. I have also the weeks before looked deeply in, why I think I'm not a racist, and looked to my childhood and growing up, etc., my likes and not likes, etc. Then found that I was more racist towards white people, countries in Europe, etc. And then realized that I grew up during the war having to hate Germans, which then I taught my parents not to, etc., etc. But then just in this discussion, I just tried to look at the beginning I know that, for instance, Nubia had a matriarchy. There were pyramids far before Egypt. And then I looked at where the woman became a mistress and then to be taken over by the master. And then the whole patriarchy came into my mind. But I know that is a favorite topic for me, an unfavorite topic for me. But then I looked at slavery, how the things had to be done. For instance, for starters, all those pyramids, my goodness, the work that goes in there. And that there were stronger slaves, that the black slaves were stronger than the white slaves, in my imagination, just then. And that there is a whole thing about ability, strength, but then a master who's taking that, using that, then suppressing that in order for it still to work, for the master. This whole patriarchal machine, in my feeling, is racism. Mm-hmm. I hope you can follow my funny head. But this is how I understand, and how I need to actually. I started to make a bit of drawing on a big piece of paper, but I need to work this out on paper, almost in a mind map. It is has a lot of lines, but I'm trying to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're with you in the process.
Hello, lovelies. I think not too many words at the moment. I feel like if I speak, it'll be from a similar level with a few bubbles of change, but I feel like it needs to sink much deeper into my being, which I welcome to meet those shadows, the truths, the revealings at a much more profound level. And so my sort of invocation and prayer for that was for myself, but I would extend that to the world as well, that we can get to much more primary levels from where we can take points of action within it all. And also just acknowledge the level of pain, that's there in the body, in the chest, and, to welcome that as a guide. May it sit there and be the leadership that needs to be there as we move through this world process. And the stunningness to see, I don't know what the count was, but to see that there was something up, was it 50,000 people, 60,000 people on the call, and that's not counting the likes of us that are sharing your screen. So I find that very beautiful, that there is this outreach from all of us seeking to be part of what needs to come into being. So it was different to what I might have expected to, but still very valuable, Cynthia. So I thank you for the doorway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Ellen. Go ahead.
Well, I felt scared about coming, but I wanted to come because I have missed so many, because I'm always out of service in my tent, and I missed everyone. I was afraid to come because I was afraid of anger and blame, of being blamed. And I was struck by the complete peaceful and solutions-oriented approach he offered, which made me love him. And what really landed in my heart was when he was talking about how solving and ending and dismantling institutionalized racism is going to be good for all of us. And in a way, it fit into my the part of my brain that's obsessed with the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, Charles Eisenstein's. I'm obsessed with that. I want that. And suddenly I could vision all the way. And then I thought about how, even though I wasn't afraid the cops were going to shoot my daughters when they were growing up, I still was raising them in a climate of horror where that happens. And that happening poisons my world. And so when he said that, and I was envisioning our world without racism, and I'm just touched to the core. And I never felt blamed, and it wasn't hard to be there. So I'm grateful for that. Because of course, being in a white skin in a world that has treated people not in white skins so abominably, people would have every reason to be angry, you know? And so there's that. Anyway, thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Ellen. It's wonderful to hear your reflections. I think you speak for all of us. And thank you for your courage in showing up, even if you were scared. It's great to see you back in the circle. Yeah. Heidi, did you want to share?
It was a very interesting, because I had a really hard time focusing on words. I really was focusing on my breath and just the experience of what was being presented. So I really wasn't in thought mode at all. And what I felt was the energy just dropped all the way to my feet. And under my feet, I felt like the words were coming from the ground, actually. They weren't coming from the head. They weren't coming from that space. They were coming from the ground. And the ground, what my interpretation was, that the ground is pained by how we are with each other. And so when I felt that, when I just came to that feeling, I just felt the pain of that. And I just let that pain just kind of keep washing through. And I was on a call with David Nichols, and what came up as that was washing through was this symbol for the United States, which was a woman called Lady Freedom on that. And I felt that same energy present in that call. I felt it in this call. So for me, bondage of any kind is, and I don't care what kind it is, it's not in accordance with life for me in the way that I experience life. I really liked what Ellen said, what her vision of the world was, and she could hold that vision while he was talking. And, I just was there. I was with it, but what I felt more was this longing for a liberated world where actually a very different reality can be blossomed. And so I couldn't get into the words or the solving of anything. I just stayed with the energy and the breath. And so I felt like that was my purpose for being on the call, was just to hold that space. And I felt like I was with a group of women that were actually also holding that space and however they hold it. And I was grateful that I was on the call with everyone here.
Thanks, Heidi. Thanks for your practice, bringing it to the ground. Yeah. Shakti. Mhm.
I have a better computer today, so I hope you hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sylvia. Australia has a terrible history too. And it still does, as it does in the US. I particularly sat with, where did I learn? You know, I was born free. As he said, we didn't get born racist. So I guess I sat with, where did I learn all this? And I learnt it, which is good, because that means I can unlearn it. And I just, at this moment in time, feel for our Aboriginal people that we've given such a terrible time to in 200 years. And we continue to in Australia. Most of our prison inmates, percentage per capita, are Aboriginal. Most are young as 10. The police have the right to imprison 10-year-olds here, and they're tortured. And we've seen it. We see it every day, and nothing's happening. No one's been convicted. Australia is incredibly racist, and I have been. And I'm unlearning it, thank goodness. And I love the idea of being an anti-racist. I really took that from that talk of I'm anti-racist from now on. I'm not racist, I'm anti-racist. And I'm about to embark in Indigenous studies and do a Bachelor of Arts in that. And I just pray I can leave something good as a result of that work with Indigenous people to bring about an everlasting change in Australia. I make that pledge today, as you are my witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shakti. We have heard you and received you and are with you all the way. And yeah, may we be support to you on that path of anti-racism and bringing that work into your situation in Australia. There's a film I watched recently, some of you have probably seen it, called 13th, that is available on Netflix, and it's about the continuation of slavery in the prison system in America. And we don't imprison 10-year-olds exactly, and that's not the focus of the film, but it's part of the system. So I recommend it if you haven't seen it. And anyway, thank you so much for the depth of your sharing. Okay, Marilyn Schramm, I see a hand up.
Yes, hi. Cynthia, you are looking as beautiful and vibrant as ever. So I wanted to thank you personally for this community gathering over this topic, because I personally consider it one of the most important things that we need to address for a humanity transformation. So I'm sitting with two issues. One is, and both are follow-ups in some respect to other commenters, why when I participate in so many of these spiritual calls of enlightened people who are on a spiritual path and journeying to understanding what we really are, how we're all interconnected and everything, why is it 75 to 90% female participation? Okay? I'm not saying there aren't men out there that are evolving, but it is, we need more divine feminine energy in our system worldwide. Okay, there's an imbalance of energy, yin and yang. We need to balance out the masculine energy. We must find our voices, women. We must clear those throat chakras. Speak up, speak out. We must breathe into the pain. Anybody who has birthed a child knows we're birthing a new humanity. And when you fear or contract, instead of breathing into the pain, you are holding back the birthing. So we must play a greater role. Women must rise and speak up and speak out. The second thing I'm sitting with is the notion of spirituality and the spiritual community and the growth of awakening, and people who are at a point of saying, I want to self-actualize, I want to realize who I really am. What is that work about? We have to go inside and uncover all that conditioning we had about who we thought we really were, and identifying with our ego and our personality and what society taught us was most important in life, and on and on and on. And it's that same process that you have to go through to uncover unconscious racial bias. So you would think that we'd all be like really good at this, right? So why is the spiritual, especially the white spiritual community, not at the forefront of anti-racism? And that is just something that's sitting with me. If you look back, it was always spiritual and, religious, I guess you could say, people like Gandhi, people like Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. It was the Quakers who led the abolitionist movement against slavery in the US. It is always the people who are most enlightened in terms of what we're all about, what the world is all about, what meaning there is to life, that it should be at the forefront. So I'm just questioning right now, what can we do? Those of us at the forefront of awakening, of transformation. Yeah, we're not done. It's never a done thing. We're doing the inner work, but we got to do the outer work too. So that's what I'm sitting with, is one, we need more divine energy, feminine energy, and we need more spiritual community activity. That's where I sit.
All right. Thank you, Marilyn. Hear you. Yep. Your voice has been heard by all of us. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Who else would like to share your voice?
Hello?
Yeah, good. Hi, Ryan. I knew you were out there.
Yeah. Stephanie left early. She brings blessings and loves because she's taking another class right now. So she put this blue Buddha of healing energy next to me. And she wants to spread love and joy for this community. And what I learned is I feel that in order to be really awakened, like everybody has to go through a certain struggle. And like people kept on telling me like stuff to do that was helping me. But in order to really realize what was really going on, I had to go through something in order to be really awakened and aware of consciousness too. And I feel that about the racism thing, I feel maybe everybody, it depends on the environment, how people are and stuff, like the environment and how people are raised. I feel that's where it all starts, because everybody was born not that way, and it just depends on who you're connected with and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm anti-racist, but it depends on how aware people are. That's the real problem, how people are aware of what they're doing. And once they find out how they are aware and what they're doing, then they'll know like what's going on, like if they double check in their mind like what they're doing and stuff like that. And I feel like racism could really be anything nowadays. Like people monopolize all the time. That could be like some type of racism. And yeah, I really love you guys. Spread joy and everything. And I learned a lot. And thank you for your teachings.
You're welcome. It's really wonderful to have you with us, Ryan. It means a lot. It really means a lot. And yeah, in the Buddha's teachings, it says right off the bat that, you know, if we want to wake up, we have to acknowledge our suffering. You know, it's the suffering that gets us onto the path of awakening. And then it's the process of going to the origin of that suffering that is the liberation, that is the real freedom. So we can sit around and feel good about ourselves forever, but if we're not willing to actually enter into that process of unpacking the cause, the origin of our suffering, going to the root, then we're not really going to wake up. And we won't really be motivated to, you know, because mostly we want to feel good. We're not really going to be motivated to do the work, to practice, to change, to transform, if we haven't really encountered the struggle, as you say. And that's, you know, and collectively, because nowadays we talk so much about a collective awakening, because we realize we're all in this together. It's not just one person anymore. It's not just one Buddha. It's all of our Buddha natures waking up together. And so we see this collective uprising, a collective grappling with how do we heal from a pandemic, a collective uprising around racism, the collective awareness of how the environment is being so drastically unraveled through climate change. You know, all of these things are like a calling in the collective experience. And it's all coming up in this time to be recognized, you know. So the struggle is not under the surface anymore. It's right here, and we're in it. And we're in it together.
And before I, like this is off the topic, but I took this.
Speak up a little, sweetie.
Before, like this is off the topic, but I took this one website. It's called 16personalities.com, and I found my personality. And it said I was an advocate at the time, assertive advocate. But I'm gonna wait 6 months to do it again and see what I get and tell you guys.
we'll be curious if it holds true, if there's another aspect of your personality that's also functioning here. I'm sure it's probably a little of both. Thanks again for being here, Ryan, and all of you. I'm curious if anyone else has anything else to bring forward. Take a breath. This is really good work, everybody. Thank you. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Liza Jane?
Yes. Excuse me. Those of you that know me know that I walk a mystical path with practical feet. And I took notes. However, I have listened to Dr. Kendi's reading of his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, on Audible. I highly recommend listening to it because it's in his voice. And I think it was Ellen that said his peaceful presentation is really very helpful. There is so much information right now. I just want to encourage people to, yes, as we were encouraged, if you haven't experienced racism, it should be studied. However, really look at what resonates with you, because not all of it will resonate with you. And most of us on this call are white women, and we're in an interesting position right now. So we do have a lot to offer. Don't forget that in creating a better world. I'm a musician, so I also want to say Keb Mo on YouTube, Put a Woman in Charge, is he's singing it with Roseanne Cash. It's a must listen to, especially when you look at the female leadership in the world today and who is conquering the coronavirus. If you look at that and then you listen to Keb Mo sing Put a Woman in Charge, you'll know that we definitely have something to offer. Some of the questions that really resonated with me over this particular call, and I've actually heard these two visionary speakers speak together before, and I really like the way Dr. Dukes brings out Dr. Kendi's teachings. One of the things that she asked that I think is really important is, how do we create systemic change? Yeah. And as a young adult, I was not all that interested in participating in the political processes, but as a mature citizen, and especially with the crisis that we're in, because we are at a critical moment in our history here in the United States, that I have all of my representatives from local all the way up to the Congress in my phone. And I began to communicate with those people on issues that are important to me. And the more I do it, the easier it gets. And so I encourage you, if you're not doing that as a spiritual practice, try that on for size. It's something that my mother used to say to me, honey, just do what you can live with. So, you know, it's like, listen to your own heart. And that was what I could live with. And I was really struck, Shakti, by your speaking about children being incarcerated. We have that here as well. And one of the things that he mentioned in this creating systemic change is to join organizations. And I've had the privilege of volunteering for well over a decade for the Children's Defense Fund here in the United States. And one of the things that we do is we have freedom schools, and we educate children, we educate young adults all over the country to educate children. And we call those children our scholars. And we teach them what they were saying needs to be taught. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's definitely something that I'm proud of to be supporting. One of the things that they talk about is the cradle to prison pipeline. So there's so much that we have in common with our sisters who are here in Australia. So much that we have in common. But I just want to encourage you to do something. If you're interested, do something, because sitting with it is a beautiful thing. Sitting with it does not create systemic change. And in this critical time, we have to have those practical feet. So thank you for listening to me on my stump, preaching a little bit.
I think we all appreciate that stump, my dear.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for doing everything you're doing and for reminding us to jump in, find our way. Yeah.
There's a lot of resources right now.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to what she was saying about
Heidi, just a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Lacey's had her hand up for a little while. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go first, Heidi. Sure. Okay. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
It's nice to be in a space. It feels really gentle and caring, and I think, you know, a lot of emotions can come up when we do this work. So yeah, it's just been kind of a lot of my work has felt like it's necessary to do on my own in this process recently. And I'm just started doing some ancestral healing course. So I have a lot of animosity towards my ancestors and towards my cultural identity. And I went to a really dark extreme a few years ago. I got like really involved in Native American activism, and I didn't even really see it happening, but I like went down this weird pattern of trying to redeem myself by hating myself and hating my ancestors and hating my whiteness. And so I'm just like really been focusing on forgiving the perpetrators of harm and just working with that, because the anger around that just became really debilitating for me. So yeah, and I guess I just had a question. I'm assuming that the recording is just maybe shared within our circle of people who are signed up for this. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the recording only goes to people who are signed up for this Monday Mindfulness Meditation.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it just feels particularly vulnerable to be sharing this space and have the sense that we're here sharing together and not really know like who else is going to watch this or hear my words. So I just noticed I had a little discomfort coming up around that. Anyway.
Yeah, in the past, I haven't really actually recorded the group conversation at the end. It's mostly just been the Dharma talk in the beginning. But then today it was such a different format and everything. And we will, Jeffrey, who was here at the beginning, will work the messiness of the Kendi talk. And so I think the recording will probably be a whole lot better than what we heard and saw today. So, but I think I'll put a note in when the recording comes out that this is just kept amongst ourselves. Yeah.
Thanks everybody for being here, beautiful people. Hey.
Thank you, Lacey, for being here and opening yourself and showing us the way. Yeah. Really appreciate everyone for hanging in here. And it's so true what you said, Ellen, about his gentleness. It was really beautiful to feel that. And I thought both of them were incredibly balanced and respectful in the way that they spoke. It's good modeling. Well, we are now at 2 hours, but there are a few of you that haven't spoken yet. If you would like to, you know, I always like to give space. Just, we're still a small enough group that, you know, and if you need to leave, you can always do that. Yeah.
It's too messy. It's way too messy to talk about. So it's not processed or anything. So, but I say it involves living in New York City for 15 years in bad neighborhoods and the complications of traumas from that, involved with a lot of other things, living in a big city with lots of people and next to housing projects for 15 years. So it's weird. So I'll enlighten you another time when I've figured out what it did to me, because I've been trying to ignore it for a long time, because that was pretty intense 15 years.
May I make a suggestion? I didn't hear you. I think you turned off your mic, but I just wanted to ask you if it's okay if I make a suggestion around that process. Yeah. So instead of trying to figure it out, you know, to just sit with it and breathe and invite the understanding to arise naturally, you know, to not ignore it, to call it up when you feel like, oh, this is a good moment for me to look deeply at what this is. But then not to really think about it.
Right.
Or try to rehearse it or try to come to something that you could then communicate later, but just to let it really work its way through. This is the process of going to the origin of the suffering, you know, where we sit with it, be with it, breathe into it, into the feelings, you know, into the sense of whatever that is. But not go up in our heads about it, because then we lose the experience. And the fruit of that exploration is in the depths of feeling it. I'm sorry, because some of these things we'd really rather not have to feel. But it's when we go there, when we allow ourselves to go there, that the understanding, you know, in the gut can release. And whether it's the ancestral energy that we carry, or the past experiences that we've lived through that are unreconciled, you know, to let them be in us and see where that
Unreconciled is a good word. Unreconciled is a very good word. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, JJ.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm aware of Kendra and also Heidi.
Not going to say much, but resonating with what many of you had said. I think for me, I'm in the beginning stages of wrestling with my own, where I've come from, which has been an extraordinarily white European background. And so, yeah, where did I learn? I mean, I get the feeling in my community that people think they're not racist. And so I'm like I said, I'm at the beginning stages of processing through all of this. Sorry, my phone is just going off. So I'll just leave that there. I guess the other thing I just wanted to note, I started reading his book last fall and got sidetracked at the holidays. But what I'm remembering from that, and then an interview that I heard a while back that really stuck with me, was that the words racist and anti-racist and defining those, it's not personal. And and that was helpful for me. You know, it's just kind of like looking at policies, for instance, are they this, and this, or are they this, and this, and which way do we want to go? That's something that has stuck with me, and I look forward to continuing with the book. But so glad to be here with you all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kendra. Glad to have you here. Yeah. So let me just check in to see if you, Elizabeth, also wanted to speak.
Let's see. Well, I will put my voice in. I agree that, you know, his gentleness, I felt what happened was it allowed us to vision being outside of racism and actually start to feel it. And that is so valuable. And I started to get this image of the snake trying to get out of the skin, you know, and somebody recently watched a snake and it was wound in the grass, using the grasses to pull off the skin. And it's just that feeling was so present with me when I was walking afterwards, of really, really wanting to shed this, you know. And a couple pieces that have been coming both today and things I listened to yesterday is that how when people are asked about racism, it always starts with this place of exonerating yourself as not being the racist and that it's everybody else. And I just really appreciated that he tied it to power, you know, and that we all do have power. And so that denial of racism is probably a place of disempowerment, that we don't feel like we can do anything, and so we do not try to deny. But anyway, that really stuck with me. Yeah. And I just really appreciate the dynamics of the current dialogue, that feels so much fuller than it has been when it's come up in the past, like in the 60s and 70s. This feels like more people are engaged and more is being revealed, and the general collective can take in more of the actual reality of history than I think we've ever been able to. And so that's, I guess we're engaging the struggle right there. And so when we can really admit to what has taken place, it's huge. So, and it does bring up, I was looking at you, JJ, just lots of feelings. I find myself in tremendous grief and outrage a lot. And if I try to suppress that and not feel it, I end up and try to be spiritual, you know, or try to be above it, or think I'm not supposed to feel it. It doesn't work. So anyway, thank you all.
Thanks, Elizabeth. That was really well spoken. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Heidi, would you like to add whatever that was that came through a minute ago, and or whatever's here?
No, but what I do want to say is this, is that when I look out into the world, if I have already a view of the world that's been set, you know, that's been crystallized into a setting, and I look out into the world, like if I'm seeing somebody from, you know, whatever has been fed to me, you know, in a past place, and I look out from that, I can never address what is actually present in the moment. And actually, when I do address something, when it's present in the moment, like I'll just give a quick thing. I was in Australia years and years ago, and I was on a dirt road at midnight in the midst of a sugarcane field trying to get this train. And I was there with a friend of mine, and there was a car full of Aboriginal men, and they were drinking. And they came up and asked if we wanted a ride to the station that was in the middle of the cane field. And my response was, no, I really appreciate you stopping and asking me for a ride, but we're just going to that station there. And they kept driving, and I said to my friend, I said, if the car pulls around, just start moving as fast as you can towards the station. So as we walk to the station, the car full of men parked the car outside, and we had our backpacks on, and we go in there, and there was just one little old white man in there. And I put my pack down and I walked out, and this man came to greet me, and I said to him, I really appreciate that you wanted to make sure we could get here safely. And it was like blowing a feather, and he turned around, walked away, and it was the end of that situation. If I had acted out of whatever my fears were, or whatever impressions may have been further out, and I couldn't meet the person from a place of integrity in myself, I would have had a different experience. I'm absolutely sure of it. And so for me, it's very much being that awake, aware presence, and that has stuck with me my whole life, that moment. I just wanted to share that because there's women in this group, and we can be vulnerable in certain settings or have that sense. And in that moment, I felt like I had full power to speak, but my speaking came from a place of appreciation and not fear. So that I just wanted to share that story, just because.
Yeah. Just because. Yeah. I listened to Robin DiAngelo the other day, and she's the one who wrote the book on white fragility, which I also really recommend. She's got a pretty important message. And she used women's suffrage as an example of that was helpful, you know, to compare and try to understand as white people, white women in particular, the situation that we're facing, and so there are some parallels there, important parallels that are still very active. Racism takes a lot of different forms, and it's true. So let's end with another bell and just take a few breaths together and allow ourselves to acknowledge the moment that we're in collectively and individually and in our little Sangha circle, and to give thanks for this precious human life and the opportunity that we've been given to wake up, and to know that this practice and process of peeling back the layers is part of something so much larger than ourselves, and that this is a form of activism. And it is important to find our voices and to share them and act on them in order to affect the change that's called for. And to trust that process in us is unfolding, and it takes the time that it does. And we're all in this together, so just once again, giving thanks. Appreciation, and letting the ripples go out with the sound of the bell. The ripples of gratitude and of appreciation and of the commitment, the vow, like Shakti made, the vows that we carry. May they root strongly into the ground beneath us, radiate out into the world around us, and bring benefit to all beings. Alalaho. See you next time.